ما خاب والله من تمسك بكم وأمنا من لجأ إليكم. فيا ليتنا ثم يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. غريب كربلاء، مظلوم كربلاء، شهيد كربلاء، غريب كربلاء، مظلوم كربلاء، شهيد كربلاء. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين وعلى الذين بذلوا مهجهم دون الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته. صلوات. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم وقوله الحق, in the chapter of Al-Hajj, chapter 22, verse 32, Allah says, ذَلِكَ وَمَنْ يُعَظِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِنْ تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this verse that, and those who glorify the rituals of Allah, for surely it is from the piety of the hearts. صدق الله العلي العظيم. آمنا بالله. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The topic of our lecture today is the philosophy of Ziyarat al-Arbaeen. Now, we sit here in the West and we turn on our TVs and we look at these millions that are moving towards Al-Imam al-Hussein salamullahi alayhi. And what we feel is this hasra inside of us that we're not with them, that it's not our turn. Some of us are lucky enough to feel this feeling of hasra, this feeling of regret that we are not with them. Others of us are oblivious and don't even know what they're missing. And what are they missing? And how can we understand what it is that they are missing and why it is that we feel the sense of regret within us, that we are not amongst them, those who were chosen by the Imam to be next to him on the day of Arbaeen. So in order to deal with this topic, today what I'd like to do is I'd like to look at two perspectives. One is we need to take a look at a couple of concepts within philosophy. Today we'll add some philosophy to the lecture, inshallah. And then what I want to do is I want to look at how these concepts that we will cover in our philosophical discourse are used in Islam. And then finally, I want to look at the topic of the lecture today and apply these ideas to the philosophy of the ziyarah of Al-Arbaeen. So the philosophical concepts that I would like to talk about are two concepts. One is called, in Arabic I'll mention them, then I'll translate them, As-Sura wal-Madda. As-Sura is the form or morphology of something. Al-Madda is the content that goes within that form or that morphology. Let me give you an example. If I take a word in Arabic, for example, we say the form in sarf, in Arabic morphology, for the past tense is fa'ala, in that form. Now I want to take this form and I want to create a new meaning. The meaning of, for example, he ran in the past. So I take the letters known as the madda, specific letters, ra, kaf, dad, and I place them in order and I place the same harakat in the same format or form or morphology as the past tense of the verb فعل. So I get ركض, right? Which means he ran in the past. So we see then that the form is essential and the content is also essential in forming the meaning. That alone, the form is only a form. It's useless unless I can actually place the content within it, and the correct content. Let's take another example. So, I'm a human being, just as all of you are. Our form, how we look, is the form and morphology of a human. But we cannot be a human by just drawing a form, right? We have to have that content. So many people across the ages have tried to create a cell and give it life, but haven't been able to, right? Why? They might have the form, they might have some of the content, but they don't have all the content, which is life. They don't have the ability to give a cell life. So this tells us then that part of the content is not enough. All of the content is necessary. So for an existent to exist, it has to have form and it has to have its content, right? Now that we understand this, now we want to get a deeper understanding of form. Form in itself can have different relationships, two specific different types of relationships within form. Let me explain to you. Form can be either in opposition or it can be a completion of another form. Let me explain to you. So, if I look at the form of a human being and his content, I have a human, right? When they're put together. And if I look at the form of a horse and its content and it's all put together, I have a horse. This form of a horse is different than the form of a human being. The form of a horse can never be a human being, right? And a human being can never be a horse. Very simple concept, right? Nothing complicated here in the philosophical discourse so far. So this is called tadad in Arabic. A form that is in opposition, right? The second type of form is a form where one has a relationship with the other. It's a relationship of completion, where one form completes the other. Let me give you an example. So, if I take a seed and I plant it in the earth, that seed, with the right soil, with the right amount of nutrients in the earth, and the right amount of rain, will then start to create another form, a form that has roots. This is a secondary form. The primary form was a seed. The secondary form was a gradual growth into a new form which had roots. The next form produces a stem that slowly comes up and peeks through the soil to the world, right? This is a third form, a tertiary form. The next form has leaves coming out of it, right? This is a quaternary form, a fourth form. Notice how one is completing the other. Without the roots, we wouldn't be able to get the stem to grow. Without the stem, we wouldn't be able to have the leaves to grow. Without the leaves, we wouldn't be able to get the branches to grow. Without the branches and the leaves, we wouldn't have the flowers to grow. And without the flowers to grow, we wouldn't have the fruits, right? So each form completes the other form. So this sort of relationship between forms is not an oppositionary relationship. It's a relationship that's a relationship of gradual completion. One form completes the other. Let me give you another example, a third one. The example of water, because I want to introduce a new relationship to you here. The example of water, if I place water in a kettle, okay, and I place it on a fire, the water itself is in a specific form. It's a liquid, correct? When I add the heat to it, what happens? It starts to boil, right? And then it turns into a new form, and that form is steam, right? Now, the steam is a form, and the water is a form. But they're both the same content. The content is water, except one is a liquid, while the other is in a gaseous or a lighter, less dense form that is floating in the air, evaporating. Correct? But they are both from the same, though they have different forms, they're from the same content. Right? The same as the seed as it grows the roots, and then the stem and the leaves and the flower and so forth. Right? Okay? The concept should be clear by now. Yes? Now there's a relationship between existence. One is a relationship of causality, and one is not a relationship of causality. Let me explain to you what I mean. If we take that kettle and the liquid water within the kettle, when I heat it with the fire is a direct cause of the boiling of the water that causes the water to then evaporate and turn into steam. The relationship between the water boiling and the fire is one of cause and effect. We call this causality. Okay? Very good. Al-Athar wal-Mu'athir, we say in Arabic. So, cause, which is the fire, effect, which is the boiling of the water, and then the steam. But the fire has its own form, and the water still has its own form. So they are in opposition. You see how that works? Okay? Tadad. While the water turning into steam, that relationship is not a relationship of causality, because it's still water, right? It's still the same form. The cause of it turning into evaporated water is the heat from the fire. Very good. So we've separated between causality and the changing of one form to the other, because some might be confused and think that because one form of the same content changes to another form, that we might think this is causality. But it's not causality. Okay? The causes are outside, the water, the nutrients, because you could have placed this very same seed where in a cupboard, it could have stayed there for years and it would have never developed any roots, right? But once you placed it in the soil and exposed it to water and nutrients, then it started to change form, right? Because the cause was external, not part of it. Clear so far? So cause is external to a form, right? Though it may cause a form to change into a different form, but it is still the same content. Very good? Right. Now let me see, is this applied within Islamic concepts? So I find, for example, in the Holy Quran, in the chapter of Al-Mu'minun, chapter 23, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states very beautifully. He says, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ سُلَالَةٍ مِنْ طِينٍ ثُمَّ جَعَلْنَاهُ نُطْفَةً فِي قَرَارٍ مَكِينٍ ثُمَّ خَلَقْنَا النُّطْفَةَ عَلَقَةً فخلقنا العلقة مضغة فخلقنا المضغة عظاما. To the end of the verse. What do these verses say? They say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created man from what? From nutfa. What's a nutfa? It's basically seminal fluid fertilizing an egg, right? An ovum. And that then turns into what he calls nutfa. And he places this nutfa, this embryo, this fertilized egg, where في قرار مكين. What's this qarar makin? Within the womb, in the uterus, right? And then he says that he creates from this nutfa alaqa, which is an embryo. And from this embryo, he creates mudgha, which is what? Which is a zygote, right? And from this zygote, of course, the fetus is formed, right? Which then has bones in it, right? So Allah is showing us here, though we have this being, this cellular form that is the same content, what happens is there's a change in its form as it gradually moves from one form to another. One form completes the other form gradually. You see? So then this philosophical concept exists within Islam itself, as is very clear in the Holy Quran in this chapter, in these verses of Al-Mu'minun. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So now, what I want to understand is, okay, so these are physical forms, right? Can I have a metaphysical form? And can a metaphysical form change into a physical form? That's really the question. Now that we understand form and content and the relationship between forms, right, in the different stages of growth and development, and we understand that if you have two different forms, that one can't change into the other, one can be the cause to another's effect, yes, right? But they can't change into each other. Now what I need to ask is, can a metaphysical form turn into a physical form? Clear question? Okay. So now, if we look at the Holy Quran again, and I'm talking specifically in Islam, right? Right now, we're trying to see, does Islam apply these philosophical concepts? So we find that in the first stage, what do we have? We have something called fitrah. Allah says, Fitratullah allati, what? خلق الناس أو فطر الناس عليها, right? So this fitrah is the innate belief in Allah Almighty, that Allah has implanted within each and every one of us. Okay? Now this fitrah, can you hold it? Does it have content necessarily? Does it have form? It's purely metaphysical. Okay? The next thing is a second stage. Allah says, يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ قِيَامًا وَقُعُودًا. This fitrah is manifested by remembrance of Allah standing and sitting. So when someone taps into their fitrah, their innate affinity towards their creator, their Lord, what happens? They start to remember Him, and they start to glorify Him, and they turn the metaphysical existence of this form of fitrah, innate affinity, into what? Into words. Can I see words? They have form. The form is different than fitrah, right? Because fitrah exists metaphysically within each and every one of us. But now I turn this fitrah into words. Words can't be held, right? Words are produced within the intellect, within our fikr, correct? So now I've changed this fitrah, which exists within me, implanted by Allah and inborn, into what? Into an intellectual form and manifestation of that fitrah. Very good. Now the third level is what? And we recite Surah Al-Asr all the time. Let's recite it together. What does Allah say in Surah Al-Asr? He says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. So here, what I want to focus on is not, because we spoke about Al-Asr yesterday also. Allah says, I swear by time, surely man is in a state of loss, except those. I want to focus on the exceptional statement and who Allah is talking about. He says, except those who believe. Who are those? Those are the ones who يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ قِيَامًا وَقُعُودًا. Those are the ones who remember their Lord standing and sitting. Okay? Those are the ones who have changed the form of their fitrah, elevated it to what? To their fikr, to their intellect, such that it manifests itself through the state of iman. Very good. So now this iman is very, very interesting, because the definition of Islam, Prophet Muhammad says, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He says, Al-Islamu iqrarun. Says Islam is to testify, to say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. But when asked what is the definition of Iman, the Prophet answers, he says, Al-Iqraru. He says, Al-Islamu Iqrarun wal-Imanu amalun bil-arkani. He says that Islam is to say, Shahada, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. This is to admit and testify. This is Iqrar. He says, but Iman is amalun bil arkan. It is the actual act of taking that Islam of Shahadatain and turning it into belief that is manifested through action. So then the third level, we went from fitra as one form, manifested into fikr, which manifests into dhikr, يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا. Now this intellectual understanding of Iman, of belief, turns into what? A form that is manifested practically through righteous deeds. That is Iman. So what does Allah say? إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. There is لا إيمان بلا عمل. This is what the Prophet says. There is no Iman without action and good deeds. Very good. Now let's look at action or good deeds. Action or good deeds are of two types. And this is where we go into the philosophy of Al-Arbaeen. Action and good deeds are of two types. An action or a deed that I do on an individual level. Like Salah, inna salati wa nusuki, right? Wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alameen. So here Allah separates between salah and nusuk. So he says, look, your ibadah is of two types. Your deeds are of two types. The first is a singular individual form of that deed, like salah. Okay? The second form is nusuk. Nusuk is defined as sha'ira. Nusuk and sha'ira are exactly the same. They have the same meaning. What is nusuk? Nusuk is group deeds. Doing a deed or a righteous act as a group. For example, Allah says in the chapter of Al-Baqarah, verse 158, He says, Inna safa wal marwata min sha'airillah. Right? He says that doing sa'i between Safa and Marwa and Hajj is a nusuk. It is a sha'ira. Now what is the component or the content of a sha'ira? Because in order for a sha'ira to be a sha'ira or a nusuk to be a nusuk, there have to be two elements within it. The first element is that it has to be a group deed. It has to be done in a group, in a congregation. Okay? As a collective. The second is that it has to tie the physical action to the metaphysical realm. So while the righteous deed on an individual level is a manifestation of my fitrah and my dhikr and therefore my iman, which becomes action, connecting the physical to the metaphysical, the same thing is the case with a sha'ira, which is group worship or nusuk. Right? You see? So then based on that, how can I apply this philosophical concept to my understanding of Arbaeen? From this now I understand that Al-Arbaeen essentially is what? Is a group manifestation of the state of Iman within a society, within a community, and connecting that metaphysical form of fitrah that we all have as a group and the intellectual understanding of Allah and our connection to Him through our dhikr, through our intellects, to what? To action. Not just singular action, but a group action. And if a singular action produces a singular reward, then a group action produces multiples of that reward. It's just a logical deduction, right? Makes sense, Brother Amir Rizan? You see Hajj Mustafa? Yeah. So now the value of this ziyarah as a group becomes greater and greater with the increase of numbers. You see? Whether it's Safa and Marwa, whether it's Tawaf, or whether it's ziyarah of Arbaeen. صلوا على محمد وعلى And so we ask ourselves, though we are not as lucky as those who are today walking towards Imam al-Hussein, salamullahi alayhi, how can I manifest my fitrah and my intellectual connection to the Imam? Through my action. So I come to group majalis so that I can have dhikr and I can manifest my righteousness through listening and through admonition, so that then when I leave this majlis, my actions can be a reflection of my belief. Today, what we want to do on this night is we want to be of those who are with Sayyida Zainab when she came, with the gifts that she had for those who were martyred. When she and Imam Zain al-Abidin came back with these gifts, as we mentioned yesterday, when someone comes back from travel, they bring gifts with them to those who are beloved to them. But Sayyida Zainab and Imam Zain al-Abidin, what did they bring as gifts with them from Sham? They brought the heads of our holy Imam and the Ahlul Bayt and the companions that stood by their side. So today, what we want to do is I want you to close your eyes and I want you to imagine yourselves with all those who are heading to Karbala right now. And imagine that we are all with Sayyida Zainab Ruhi laha al-fida. Just like Jabir, who was lucky enough to see them coming towards Karbala. We are tonight with them. Our women are with Sayyida Zainab and with Sukaina and with Ramla and with Layla. The women are together with them, consoling, greeting them like Jabir greeted them. Our women are standing next to Sayyida Zainab and saying to her and consoling to her, dear Zainab, dear Sukaina, don't be sad. And we men, we're standing by Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari. We are following him and Imam Zain al-Abidin. Do you see the Imam? Do you see the Imam al-Baqir? You close your eyes and imagine yourself there. Let's change that form into a metaphysical connection. We're all there with Imam Zain al-Abidin, following him and Jabir as he says, Ya Jabir, هذا جسد أبي. This is the body of my father. Return his head to his body. Ya Jabir, هذا جسد أخي. This is my brother Ali al-Akbar. Return his head to him. And we see the women weeping, and our women are with them, surrounding them, cradling them, placing their arms around them, consoling them, and crying with them. And we are holding back our tears and trying to be strong as we walk behind the Imam Zain al-Abidin. Do you see yourself there? Do you see yourself with me there? If you see yourself there, shout out loud, Wa Husayna. Loud, let the Imam hear you. Wa Husayna. We are with Imam Zayn al-Abidin as he returns the head to Imam al-Husayn. We are with him as he returns the head to Ali al-Akbar. We are with him as he returns the head of al-Qasim back to his body. We are with him as he returns the head of Ja'far back to his body. We are with him as he returns the head of Uthman back to his body. We are with him as he returns the head of Abdullah back to his body. We are with him as he returns the head of Habib ibn Mudahir back to his body. We are with him as he returns Han ibn Urwa's head back to his body. We are with him as he returns Muslim ibn Aous' head back to his body. We are with him as he returns Burayr's head back to his body. We are with him as he returns Abis's head back to his body. We are with him as he returns the head of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas back to his body. السلام على الحسين all together وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين وعلى الذين بذلوا مهجهم دون الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته.
يا ليتنا كنا معك فأفوز فوزا عظيما. يا حسين يا حسین بی سر و سامان توام یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین بی سر و سامان توام یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین دست به دامان توام یا حسین